In this episode, Golden and I discuss Titans Season 2. Full speed ahead. Welcome to the Omega Beam number 56. I'm your host, Oren Merton. And if you're in the USA, the only place you can see Titans is on DC Universe, although it's on Netflix around the rest of the globe. So not a lot of people in the US subscribe to DC Universe, which is too bad because this really is an interesting show. So Golden and I have it. We've watched all of Season 2, and we wanted to share it with you. So if you've also finished it, or if you're just curious about the show, well, here we go. I'm here with Golden to talk about Titans, a show that is on DC Universe, the streaming service by DC that's all DC all the time, at least in the United States. And the rest of the world, it's in Netflix. So we're not sure how many people have actually seen the show because DC Universe in the USA is not a particularly popular streaming service. But that's not to say the shows on it are not worth seeing. So let's talk about...
There's some really awesome shows on DC Universe.
There are. Titans, interestingly, is one that I did not want to see necessarily at first. We saw the preview in Comic-Con 2018.
Which you left thinking, I don't want to see a show with Robin saying F Batman.
Yeah, it seemed like it was just kind of trying to just be edgy for edgy's sake. It didn't necessarily seem like it was going anywhere. But then we watched all of Season 1, and it turned out that it was actually a really good show. It had great character interactions, had an interesting arc throughout the season.
And you still have a couple teenagers.
Yeah.
But for the most part, the Teen Titans are all grown up.
That's right. They're not teens anymore. I had originally thought they just took the word teen out of the title because, they wanted to be, an edgier show, and teen sounds a little cheesy. But of all the DC superhero shows that Greg Berlanti is on top of, I'd say this is without a doubt the darkest. And Arrow is pretty dark, but I think this is even darker. Probably because it can get bloodier because it's their own streaming service. They don't have to, watch the language for broadcast and whatever else.
Yeah, they definitely don't have to watch the language if they're using the F word even in the preview alone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think that the darkness wasn't simply for show or to make it edgy, but that especially the first season was about sort of Dick Grayson in crisis. It was about Dick Grayson in crisis. It was about Raven in crisis.
Well, it was about Raven discovering who she was.
Yeah. And there was a lot.
And also Corey.
Right.
Starfire, discovering who she was since she didn't really remember very well.
Exactly. And so the Season 1 set up Season 2 very nicely. It sort of put the Titans together, but they were still kind of broken. It's like they had just been fixed.
It introduces you have your main Titans. Mm-hmm. You have Dick Grayson.
Right.
Who's is Robin, but not quite Robin.
Right, he kind of gave up Robin.
Yeah.
In Season 1, he burned the costume. So that's a sign that he's not so happy about being Robin.
Yeah, there will be some spoilers.
Yes, there will be some spoilers.
You have Corey, Starfire. Right. You have Rachel, Raven, and you have Garth, Beast Boy. And the four core are set. Mm-hmm. And then you're introduced to the other characters.
Right.
Donna Troy, Dove and Hawk, it's rounding it out. And then, of course, you have the moody new Robin.
Jason Todd.
Who is all sorts of moody.
Jason Todd has had a pretty tragic comic history.
I'm not saying that he's not moody for a reason.
Right.
He just, he puts the bro in brooding.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, he definitely, he doesn't necessarily want to be a Titan. It's kind of made clear, one of the supporting characters in Season 2 is Bruce Wayne. Apparently, they were not able to get the rights to Batman, who's, I guess the movies have kind of claimed him, but they were able to bring in Bruce Wayne. So they have Bruce Wayne show up a number of times. And originally, Jason Todd was brought into the Titans as almost a favor that Bruce asks Dick, okay, you can have the room back. You can have the Titan Tower back, but I want you to try and, bash some sense into Jason Todd.
So they can't use Batman.
They can't, I guess, show Batman because they
can't show him. Okay,
they certainly talk about him
because they talk about Batman and Batwoman, so they've got to be able to say his name.
Yeah,
okay.
They certainly can talk about him. Season 2 took sort of the team. The first thing they do in the beginning of seasons 2 is they break up the team. Half the team goes one way, another half goes the other way, and then the season is about sort of bringing them back together.
I think it's not just breaking up. It's fragmented.
Right.
Definitely fragmented. Because it's not just a breakup. Something happens in season 2 that is this massive fragmentation of the team.
Right.
And the trust has been split.
Mm-hmm.
There's all these things that, can this even be repaired? And you have one of the Titans that's like, nah, it can all go back together. It's all going to be good. And remains behind. Which actually is remaining behind to basically watch a vegetable. See if the vegetable actually comes out of its vegetative state.
That is another one of the, I think, really interesting themes about this whole arc of season 2 is that of found family. And that's been I am just a sucker for stories about found family. Most of my novels are about found family.
So I'm going to just stop right here and let you know that we are going to be giving spoilers probably from this point out because it's kind of difficult to talk in rhyme and riddles and explain or have you understand what we got out of Titans.
Very true. So,
season 2.
Found family. At first, they sort of were juxtaposing the escape and creation of Connor, who in the later DC books was Connor Kent, Superboy, created as a clone from DNA of both Lex Luthor and Superman.
And he's having scattered memories of both, which is extremely confusing.
Right. And originally I was thinking, okay, well, Connor is a character in the Teen Titans, so I guess this is why they're bringing him into the Titans TV show, but it didn't seem to have much connection to me. It was like, oh, they're just bringing him in because they know some of the fan base is going to expect him and whatever. I'm not sure what this has to do with anything.
It's the dog.
But by the end of the season, you realize, once it becomes clear that the arc is found family, and you realize that's his quest, that as soon as he's basically escapes from Cadmus that created him, he's looking for a family. And so by the end of the arc, he does join Titans, spoilers, and it's the family. It does dovetail very, very nicely into that arc. And of course, there's relationships. There's, Dove is the character Dawn. She's, first she's with Dick Grayson, and then she's with Hank.
Well, that's way before season 2 was actually happening.
Right.
That's
in
flashbacks.
Yeah.
There's a lot in flashbacks in terms of the history of the Titans before this new grouping of Titans.
Yeah.
Which was Donna Troy, Robin, Dawn as Dove, and Hank as Hawk, and also Aqualad, Aqualad, who really has the hots for Donna Troy. And then, of course, as soon as she realizes that this is something that could actually be something of value, it's taken away.
Yeah.
Which leads then to our villain, who is pushing and pulling the family.
Right, Deathstroke.
The entire time, including his own, manipulating and using his daughter, so she's completely lost as to who really is family. blaming Dick for the death of his son Jericho. And you really get to see that a lot of it and that fragmentation, which occurred around what happened in Jericho dying,
right,
really wasn't very clear before, because there were levels and different layers, and Jericho wasn't gone.
He wasn't gone at all. And I think that,
and he still really wanted to be part of the Titans and saw himself as part of their family, even if he wasn't a superhero.
Exactly. And I think that also highlights sort of the kind of dysfunctional family that the Titans is, and how it isn't simply a superhero team in the sense of, we're superheroes, let's get together so we can do more superheroics. They really are misfits.
And they make mistakes.
They do. They make a lot of mistakes.
Sometimes very big mistakes, and people die.
Right.
And you have all of these different characters that are multi-layered. You have Corey dealing with family and trying to figure out what's important to her here, what's important to her at home. You have Dick, who thinks that he needs to give up everything and lock himself away.
Right.
And still can't get away from Bruce because Bruce is still in his head.
Right.
And Rachel not knowing if she's controlling her powers or her powers are controlling her.
Right.
I think the only one that is kind of mostly at peace and got his all of his shit together is Garth until...
Gar, yeah.
Gar?
Gar, no TH.
I don't know, I kept saying TH. What do I keep saying? So, is Gar, because...
And interestingly, Gar is the one who already came from a sort of found family to begin with. That in season 1, when we first meet Gar, he is part of the Doom Patrol. And then he leaves the Doom Patrol to join the Titans. So he's the one who, like you said, is kind of trying to keep the family together when it's fragmenting. Yeah. And he's the one who came from a family to begin with.
There's a great scene after everyone's left, and he's like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to keep everything together. And it's the first day, and he gets up, and this is his schedule, and he's great. This is awesome. And it's day 2, and is it only day 2? Oh, my gosh. It's only day 2?
Yeah, the actors do such a wonderful job with all of the characters. And, we've talked in other shows, like in the Sabrina episode, about how everything that has a Greg Berlanti stamp, that he always knows how to bring in the quality. He brings in good scorers for great sound, good, the songs are chosen and licensed well when they're using songs.
Which is interesting because, as I said in the season finale for season 2, I did not like the operatic music playing towards the end of the episode.
Yeah, that was the one misstep in a fantastic, sound.
It really pulled me out of the episode.
I know what they were trying to do, but I agree that the opera was just a little too over the top for what that scene was.
It just didn't seem to fit.
I did think it was amusing that when the whole show ended and they were showing the credits of the finale, that of all songs in the world to play for this, dark show, they played "We Are Family," which is just this straight up optimistic, up-tempo, song. But it made sense because they had found each other, that they realized that it wasn't just a group of people who were lodging together for a little while until they moved on, that they really felt that they were a unit and they were a family.
With the exception of one who still does not feel connected to the rest of them. Jason Todd.
Oh, he may be out of the show.
Wow.
I think they may be done with the character of Jason Todd. But yeah, for those who don't know the comic history of Jason Todd, so he was Robin after Dick Grayson, and I guess he wasn't a very popular character. So to drum up interest, DC ran a I think phone and mail-in competition. Should they or shouldn't they kill Jason Todd? And
I'm shaking my head right now.
And kill one.
That's just sad.
So they killed him off. The Joker killed him off, actually. And I believe years and years later, he was brought back as the Red Hood and as a villain. But eventually, I think it was because he went
crazy. I could see that going that way with this type.
Yeah,
Titans.
I think he went crazy because of the Lazarus pit when he was resurrected.
But it was really interesting to see his relationship developing with Rose. And I really felt like they could really pull on each other and they really were getting each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then to see it fall apart was...
Well, sad. Jason's problem is he cannot trust. That from the very beginning, that's been his problem, that he cannot trust. And ultimately, Rose couldn't trust either, so they were kind of meant for each other, but then they started opening up to each other, and Rose was able to accept all of Jason Todd's, rough edges, and Jason was not able to accept her rough edges, and that's too bad. But that's a realistic character flaw.
So speaking of flaws or things that bug me, so the last episode, they're going to fight the bad. So let's all line up. Let's all line up side by side. And if this was D&D, that's exactly where someone would be hiding, and there goes the lightning bolt all through all of them. I mean, just... Don't line up. It's just, it seems posed.
It was posed. It was the splash page. It was, the splash page.
I'm not impressed by the splash. I'm not impressed by the splash page.
Yeah. This series clearly has a lesser budget than some of the CW shows. Not just because it had more unknown actors and actresses, but because the CG sometimes looked a little less polished than you get on the CW shows. But I think they did the most with what they had. I think it looked great. I think the costumes looked wonderful.
Especially the last episode. And like I said, I didn't remember Donna Troy's outfit being that exquisite. But it was, I think that's a good word for it. It was exquisite.
Yeah, it was a great costume.
Because the detailing was beautiful.
Right. They did show that exact costume in some of the flashbacks, but it was not focused on until that final episode. If you've read anything about season 2, it is not going to be a surprise that season 2 is when Dick Grayson becomes Nightwing. And I thought the Nightwing costume was excellent. I mean, it was a great costume. It looked great. He moved really well in it. And that was really something. So I think those were the major sort of new costumes for this season.
Oh, well, there's one other big different costume that moves and changes. Raven's.
Oh, yeah. She doesn't really have a costume so much as just a wardrobe. But yeah, definitely. I'm really impressed with what they've done with Raven. If you've either read my blogs as a writer, you know that one of the myriad of influences in creating my character of Firebird Alex was Raven, but in the negative, that I specifically thought the DC Comics 1980s version of Raven was terrible. And it got me thinking, what would I do if I were creating a half-demon character? But I think this, and Jeff Johns, to be fair, in later years, Jeff Johns rewrote Raven and made her into a really interesting magic user. But I thought that the TV series really turned Raven into an interesting character. I love the look of the old Raven. We even have a statue of Raven because it's just a cool look.
Yeah.
But I've never really dug the persona of the character until this series. And that the credit goes to the writers, the credit goes to the creators, the credit goes also to the wonderful actress, whom I don't think I'd seen in anything before this, but I believe she's been in a few things, maybe in England or whatever, or her native England. But I think she just really inhabited the character. Really, they all did. They all did a great job.
And speaking of characters, the character that you just couldn't wait. And I spent the last episode, they finally get Connor back to their side. I'm like, okay, well, where's Krypto? Come on, you got to go get the dog.
The whole series is about Krypto as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I am so glad.
The dog is awesome.
The dog is awesome. Krypto is awesome. I've loved Krypto in the comics forever. I've always joked that if one day Warner Brothers let me write a Superman, I'm bringing in Krypto, because you just have to have Krypto. And I could not have been happier that they brought Krypto into this one, and not in a stupid way.
Oh, no. They did a really good job with him.
Yeah.
And I know there were lots of things in the season that weren't necessarily the least predictable, because I know I spoiled some things by saying them before they happened, but it just occurred to me that this would be the next thing that would happen.
Sure. Well, that's the thing. I think a lot of these more straightforward superhero shows, even if you know where they're going, if they go there in an interesting way, that's still eminently watchable. And this is that show. This is one of those shows where it's not necessarily going to surprise you, but you're just going to like watching the journey, because they do it real well. And I'm not a fan of the comic of the Teen Titans. I mean, this isn't like a favorite team of mine or anything. I'm really not generally a Titans guy, but they really did a good job.
And it's not the cutesy, ditzy Starfire.
Oh, yeah.
Which is,
absolutely.
It's nice.
Yeah, in 2011, in the New 52 reboot, they got a lot of flack for the fact that Starfire was basically in a stripper's bikini, and her personality had been reduced to more or less being a sex object for the male heroes in whatever team she was in. And they have gone the opposite direction in this one. She is empowerment incarnate. She is a powerful, powerful character with her own journey and her own complexities. Really well done. Well, I think that's it. One last thing I'll say is, if you've been following the not comic news, just entertainment news, you know that Warner Brothers wants some of that sweet Disney Plus lucre. And so Warner Brothers is working on their own streaming service, which they're calling HBO Max. And it's supposed to be out in, I think, 2021, maybe 2020 or 2020. I don't remember exactly when, but it's a while. It's going to be a while. And it's supposed to be basically all of HBO, plus if you spring for Max, then you also get the entire Warner Brothers catalog and exclusive Warner Brothers stuff, like you do with Disney Plus. So one of the things that made me quite happy is the status of DC Universe might be a little bit
questionable.
Yeah, questionable. But Titans has been renewed for a season 3. Doom Patrol has definitely been renewed. That is an amazing series that's worth its own
Honestly,
podcast.
I still think that is one of the best TV series of 2019.
Totally agree. And I was very happy
Speaking of series that we sat down to watch expecting very little, and we're glad that
blown away by how good it was.
Our expectations were exceeded over and over again.
And for both of those and even more series, what makes me happy is that they will all be on HBO Max. So that is going to, I think, expand the audience for these really, really good shows considerably, because they will suddenly be available to all the people into HBO and not just the people who are into comic books enough to subscribe to the DC Universe channel. That covers Titans Season 1. Thank you, Golden.
I think so. Was that just Season 1?
Or Season 2?
That was Season 2.
That was Season 2.
But you talked about Season 1?
A little bit. It kind of blurs. I guess it's like Titans Seasons 1 and 2 in a way, you'd say, wouldn't you?
You are welcome.
And that's it for this episode. You can find the show notes at theomegabeam.com/56. If you like this episode, please leave a review in the Apple Podcasts app or wherever you listen to podcasts. These reviews help people who might be interested find the podcast. If you have any comments or suggestions, please drop us a line at info@theomegabeam.com. Be good to yourselves and each other, and we'll catch you next time.